Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the. No, I'm not going to mute the call. If I mute the call, then Brenda can't tell us about her cover letter. So we'll see how that does. If I get a lot of feedback, then I'm just going to ask everybody to mute the call, their own line, star six. As a matter of fact, why don't we just go ahead and do that? Everybody but Brenda at this point, do a star six. And Brenda, are you still where you can speak?
Yes, I am. I'm using my.
Right. Well, here is Brenda's cover letter for those that are still listening in. What would you like to tell us, Brenda? What was your strategy? Just kind of overall, what was your strategy? What did you want to share about Candace? This is you have the floor.
Okay. I thought that Candace had a really strong background for this particular position. And if I were Mr. Bowman and I received a application and cover letter from a Candace, I would immediately think that this is a female, and that would, one, pique my interest. So the first thing I thought I would do would be to address the elephant in the room, and that would be, why is this woman applying for this particular job? So I started it off to let them know that, yes, I'm a female, but I grew up with 4 brothers, and that was an advantage for me. And throughout my career, I have been in some male dominated positions, but don't get it twisted, I'm still a girly girl, and I can successfully handle this job because I have the background. And let me share some of my strengths with you. And those strengths that I listed under the bullet points really speak to the position that she was applying for. Let's see, do I need to tell you anything else about it?
Well, I think the other thing that was very specific that you mentioned when we were going over this, and I even kind of challenged you on it a little bit, Brenda did a really nice job of identifying what the key words were in the job announcement, and then trying to weave them in throughout the cover letter. So I wanted to make sure that we called attention to that too, Brenda. So since you've each muted your line, if you have comments or questions, let's just kind of go down the line alphabetically. Christina, if you have comments, questions, feedback you'd like to share, I'll give you a chance to unmute your line and speak.
Awesome. I think it looks really well done. It's really interesting to be able to see other people's work because it shows you how many different ways there are to approach this. Everything makes sense. The only question I had was at the end, is it okay to do like a signature font to sign the name in addition to typing it out before the enclosure?
Is it okay in terms of for submitting for certification?
Yes, I guess it's more a certification question, or even if that's generally.
Yeah, it would be fine for certification purposes. Certainly if the client was actually submitting the cover letter through the mail, they would put their own signature on it. If they're submitting it electronically, then the only thing that I could suggest would be for them to, sign it and scan it. There really wouldn't be a lot of opportunities to do that. So we're kind of at a disadvantage now when everything's being handled electronically. But in terms of submitting your sample and then doing the NCRW exam, it's perfectly fine what Brenda did here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Doug, how about you?
Not questions so much as I like the way, I like the intro, immediately addressing the question of growing up with 4 brothers. Not only does it address what you said was the elephant in the room, but it is also, I think, an unusual beginning that would probably catch the reader's eye and draw him. I guess it's a him further in. And I also like the way you pulled some of her own language from her profile that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good observation, Doug. Thank you. Ronnie, did you have any comments or questions about Brenda's cover letter?
No, I think it's great. It's a great cover letter. I love it. It's nice. I was, and coming to these classes, I've learned that it's okay that you can be very personal, because I never would have thought to have been able to say that I'm a girly girl.
Okay.
I would have thought that was taboo. But I've learned that it's okay nowadays, and I love that. It is what it is, and be it. Right?
Yeah, well, very good. How about you, LJ? Did you have any comments or questions on her cover letter?
I just think it's awesome. Like I would want to interview this girl. Like I'd pick the phone up.
Very good. So I'm hearing so far from everybody, she covered those AIDA principles. She grabbed attention, she created interest, she piqued desire, and then she actually, followed up by making action easy, asking for the interview, indicating that she was going to follow up and call the employer. Great feedback. How about you, Tiffany?
Well, first of all, on the signature, somebody had a question about signature. I've had clients just scan me their signature, and I'll put it in the letter just as an option when we have time. But I have to say, I think the letter is good overall, but I'm not comfortable bringing up the gender issue in the letter. So I don't know that I would have done it. I think it's brave, but I don't know how much that really helps. I'm curious about what you think, Noreen, about using a term like girly girl and male dominated. That makes me uncomfortable. So.
Okay. All right. No, that's great feedback, and it really does depend on the audience that you're trying to target. When Brenda first did the cover letter, and we reviewed it together, I pointed out that she was not quite making the analogy about making that transition from how does growing up with four brothers lead her on the career path she's on. So she did work to the first sentence, the male-dominated positions. I agree with what you just said, Tiffany. It's a bold move. It's risky, but I think it could be effective. I still think that I'm definitely a girly girl who's successfully led, managed, and supervised. There still could be a little bit more of a stronger connection. It kind of leaves me as a reader to wonder, well, does one have to be a girly girl to lead, manage, and supervise diverse personnel? So maybe addressing that a little bit softer, but still making that connection. But you're right, Tiffany. It's bold. It's risky. It may work. It may not work. It really is going to depend on the audience that you're targeting. The only other things that I might want to point out here, though, is, and I did send Brenda feedback on this, that lead-in statement, a few of my greatest strengths, which makes me a great candidate for Bowman's parts manager. I really recommend editing that for a couple of reasons. One is we've got greatest and great in the same sentence, which is a little bit of a redundancy. And then it's not quite parallel then with what follows. And that whole issue of parallelism continues, I think, to boggle everybody's mind. Now, I can't remember. Brenda, do you remember, did I send you back the edit? And if I did, how did I change that line? I can't remember.
Oh, not sure that I remember it either.
Okay, let me find that and see if I can pull it up for everybody. Because I know I made one change to that. No, that was the resume. We don't want to look at the resume right now.
Did you change the which and that I had in the first sentence?
Well, what I changed was that lead-in that says a few of my greatest strengths, which makes me a great candidate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's not a very, it does not adhere to parallel structure in terms of you then introducing a list of strengths.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take a lot of time to look that up, but I guess the main point here is or three main points with this is try to, be aware of those redundancies, which can be the same word used twice in the sentence or the derivative of a word being used twice in the sentence. So we got greatest and great.
Yes.
When you follow a phrase with a colon, somewhere in the phrase it has to make a reference to something such as including the following or as indicated below. Otherwise, the colon is not the right punctuation to use there. So that would be an error in that statement. And then making sure that the statement would actually flow into a parallel alignment with what it is that you're needing to list. So if those are issues for you, just make a note.
Okay.
And I'm not going to take any more time to try to find the example of the rewrite on that, but well done, Brenda. Not only bold in how you handle Candace's resume or cover letter, but also bold that you were willing to share it and that you were the first person to do that tonight. So thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
Okay. So let me flip back down then to the next person who volunteered to show and tell. Doug, you wanted to share both your resume and your cover letter. Do you want to do that in any particular order?
I think just the cover letter and the resume, I don't know is, how important that is to share, but I'm, if you think it might be useful, I'm happy to. But I would like to do the cover letter.
Okay. Well, let me pull up Doug's cover letter, and then you can all put your lines on mute again, except for Doug. And, let me pull that up. Okay, there you go, Doug. You've got the floor. Tell us what you did and why you did it.
As I told Noreen, this is an experiment. I did what I guess it's called a T-bar format cover letter, which I have never done before. But looking at the lineup between the job announcement requirements and Candace's qualifications, it just sort of seemed to beg for. In fact, I sort of put a parallel list, just trying to make sure I got the match. And then by then, the body of the letter had almost been written. At least sort of a general sketch. It took a lot of work. I mean, it took working with because it was hard to fit everything in without scrunching it all up, and still try to cover all the bases of her main qualifications for the job. I'm reasonably happy with it, but I think both Noreen and I agreed that this may not be a regular format to use.
Tell us a little bit about how you applied the AIDA principles, Doug.
Well, I tried to address one of her accomplishments. I mean, lead in with her direct relevance, her directly relevant experience, which is managing exactly what they seem to require, a parts warehouse with an agricultural equipment dealership, but also show her what I think is one of her greatest strengths, which is her ability to create order out of chaos. A quote that I used in the actual resume.
Okay. Anything else you want to share?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, all right. Well, then we'll go backwards up the list this time. So, Brenda, if you have any comments or questions, would you unmute your line, and you have the floor.
Oh, no, I like it. I especially like his initial statement because it shows a direct correlation between why this person would be worthy of a interview.
Great.
And I do like the T format. It looks like it would be hard to format from a typesetting point of view, but yeah, I do like that.
It definitely is, isn't it, Doug? What you're looking at here is what I reformatted after Doug sent it to me. So it was a team effort to get this to line up, and there's still a couple of issues there. If you look at the second item, the needs and qualifications, we still got a orphan line that's floating here. So it's very, very tricky to try to line this up, and I probably would not recommend that you try to do that for the purpose of grading, because you'll pull your hair out. But thanks, Brenda. Thank you. Tiffany, if you have comments or questions, you want to unmute your line?
Yeah, I really like the introduction, kind of it's almost like a story, example. So I like the way it captures attention. I did have a question about using the 6+ years, because that was a comment or feedback in my letter, not to use the number 8 with the plus in a cover letter. Would that apply when you're using the T-bar format?
Yeah, you brought up a good point, Tiffany, and I think I called that out on a couple of different letters. When we were going over the resumes and we're talking about concise writing and the importance of being concise in the resume, and how over the years we've kind of become more flexible and accepting of using the numeric format of all numbers from 1 and up. However, with a formal business correspondence like a letter of this nature, you really should spell out those numbers 10 and below. If you're using an e-note, in other words, a very modified cover letter that you're putting into the body of an email message or on a job board, then again, it's fine if you want to be more concise with your writing. But I think Tiffany brought up a good point, and I did point it out. Formal business correspondence of this nature, spell out those numbers 10 and below, and that'll make Doug even crazier, because that'll really throw off his formatting on the T-bar.
Well, it might take care of that orphan personnel word.
It would probably take care of that. Doug, also, I went through this. I don't know if I even found any other typographical or punctuation errors, so that's really strong. And I agree with the feedback I've gotten so far. Is that is a really nice opening to a cover letter. I give them a lot of credit on that one. LJ, if you have any comments or questions you want to add, would you like to unmute your line? Okay, I'll move up to Ronnie then. I didn't hang up on everybody.
Nope.
I was muted and I forgot. Sorry. Hello? Hello?
Oh, yeah.
It's Ronnie. I was muted and I forgot. Here I was talking. But for me, that this is the format that I've used forever. But my question, and I love the introductory. I've never done that, so that's wonderful. I've definitely started doing it. Well, how does the ATS system pick this up, Noreen? Is it okay?
This one would be a real problem, because when an ATS gets when an ATS gets a table, it'll read down the left and then it'll read down the right. Or with this one, if I were to turn on the borders, you could see that there's borders all the way around. So what happens then is the ATS doesn't know which direction to go in this. It'll go across and then it'll go back over here, and then and everything gets skewed with the ATS. So if you're using a table in ATS, the recommendation is that it only be a 2-column, 1-row table. And then that creates even a whole nother issue in trying to do this format. So my advice is, don't attempt to do it unless you know that this is going to be a resume that's going to be delivered in hard copy. It's not going to, or cover letter. It's not going to get scanned. You really were very meticulous about lining everything up. I don't know that it's really worth the effort.
Okay.
And
yeah, I
it would
think
be
it's beautiful.
a
Great
complete
job.
mess if you sent it by email too, wouldn't it?
If you tried to put it in the body of an email message, yeah, you definitely would have a problem. If you're doing it as an email attachment, it might even be wise to send it as a PDF, and that way you know nothing's moving around on it.
Yeah.
Because when they open it, it's really hard to say are the cells staying where you want them to be. But overall, it's a great strategy, and, Doug, you did a really super job, and let me just give Christina an opportunity to add hers. Oh, and LJ just popped in. So, Christina, did you have any comments?
I like it as well. I agree that the first sentence is very strong, especially having parts warehouse and dealership and inventory. Off the bat, I think they'll be able to tell very quickly that she's qualified. My only other question was about the ATS, which you just addressed, so I think I'm good.
Okay. And LJ, I didn't read your comment. Did you did you have something else to add? I saw you pop up here, and I didn't see what you wrote. Let me see. My line was muted as well. I really like the format. It feels like one that would really help HR to check off the fit box to advance the resume to the hiring manager for review. Yeah, definitely a great way to know right away that the client is qualified. The other strategy, though, too, is to just get rid of the T-bar format and then just do somewhat of a bulleted list that says, my qualifications align with your needs, and then, just start out with 6 years of parts warehouse experience, or, you requested 5, I have 6, something of that nature. But, the thing that's strongest here is this opening is wonderful. And then Doug did a really nice, in addition to these qualifications, he kind of summarized and worked in some more of the keywords. I love this little extra qualities that help me get promoted from laborer to management. So rather than just, bragging I got promoted, he's figured out a way to weave that into the story. And then also calling out at the very end the best way to reach Candace. The only other thing that would be necessary is to just add that line underneath the signature that just says enclosure. And that's just part of the full block style format.
That's where I was running out of room.
Right. And just to note, because I'm not going to bring up Doug's resume, but he did use an 11-point font in the resume and then reduced it to 10 points so he could keep this on one page. And, that would be acceptable. So good job, Doug, and thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah, let me see who was left here. Is Ronnie. I'm going to pull up your cover letter, and Ronnie, it's still got a couple of the track changes in it, but maybe that would also be good for people to be able to see just those little areas that I called out that we could improve on. But overall, I really would love for you to share your cover letter because I personally think it has some strengths. But I'm going to let you do your talking first, and then I'll get everybody else's feedback. So if you'll start 6 your line, except for Ronnie. Ronnie, go ahead and tell us what you did and how you did it and why you did it.
Okay, so I did send you the revised issue, but I hear you saying that you left this so that we could talk about it, and that's really great. I like that. But so for me, from the get-go, to me, Candace was a very dynamic individual. She was very much a person of her own style, and she wanted to get that message out. She got it out when she was sending all her information to you. She clearly wants to let everybody know that she's a warrior type personality. So I wanted to bring that personality trait out in her. So I kind of vacillated between, do I put all of her most important parts that the job ad was asking for in as part of what I pull out in that one section there after paragraph 2, or was I going to put it up right at the beginning? So I chose to put it up right at the beginning in the second paragraph, how she stated that she was self-motivated and that her background and all of her years combined in the warehouse experience and agriculture and commercial equipment. Also, one of the things I wanted to make sure in the beginning of my statement in my first paragraph is if you look at her address, she was from Amarillo and she was moving to Abilene. So I wanted to make sure that the reader understood she was available. She was moving down there. And plus that, not only was she going to be available and going to move down there, but she had already been researching the company. So she was there. She belonged to them. She was a part of them already. She had already immersed herself in the company, and they had nothing better to do but take her in because she was going to get them to where they needed to go. Their goal was her goal. And so she goes forward with that, and then she starts to, in somewhat of a bullet, starts to label as best as I could the various things that she had going for her. And earlier in the thing, I was a little bit strong. You're right, Noreen, where I said in the end of the second paragraph, let me tell you what I have to offer that makes me the perfect candidate. And mine was just Noreen calmed it down because that's exactly what I said at the beginning. I said, let me tell you what I have to offer that makes me the perfect candidate. And Noreen was like, I think it's a little too strong. Let's try to do something else. So we fix it up as Noreen wanted me to, and it's supposed to say, let me tell you what I have to offer that makes me the perfect candidate. So fix it up. We're going to fix it up in that way. I use the fact that she says she's a hound dog. I love that part. They say that she's a hound dog, and I'm pretty sure that she really wanted them to know she was truly a hound dog and that she could get the job done. That was her approach. The second one that I set up, let me see how yours is, Noreen, is that she got the job done. So it was just all those various things. And then in the other resume, I thought we were supposed to get that resume word out there, and I have a hard time with putting that little accent over the E, so I really invested time, and I wanted Noreen to be proud of me. So but we took it out.
And I crossed it off.
That's it. Yeah, and yeah. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, that is awesome, Ronnie. Christina, then, did you have any comments or questions for Ronnie?
I like it, and I think starting with the congratulations is not something that I think I've ever seen before, so it definitely is something that grabs interest off the bat. Well written. I think it looks good. My only question is, what did I have? I made a note while we were going through it. Sorry, I just forgot what my question was. I was thinking about it when you were talking, and now I just lost it. About contraction. So grammatically, are we she said Dave needed a dealership, and I'm a self-motivated resident. Is it okay to use contractions in a formal business letter?
You're the first person to ask me that. I don't know that we've ever called that out as an error. Mm-hmm. I know that I don't call it out as an error when I'm grading. I don't believe there's a study guide that's an error. I can't point to that as being incorrect. But I understand your point. It is a more casual tone. We do have one grader, come to think of it, who says you should never use that format in a letter. But and you'll see when I go through the grading tonight, it's not enough that's going to, toss this out as a total deal breaker. And I think, Ronnie made a really good point. She's trying to speak in Candace's voice. And Ronnie's sales pitch, my God, I was ready to interview Candace just based on what Ronnie was saying about her.
One of the first things to let you guys know is that this whole format is not exactly totally mine. A lot of it was, but I found that I bought the book that Noreen suggested, the keywords book, and a lot of this letter came from that keywords book. So the idea started off from that little book. So that little book was a gem.
And I think that's an excellent point that Ronnie made too. I've always said that, to everybody is look at other samples, use that as a starting point, and then make it your own. So the things that are highlighted, these are just some punctuation errors that Ronnie had lingering in her original, and I corrected them, and all I did is highlight the corrections. So if that confuses anybody, I just wanted to point that out. Well, let me move on to Doug then and give you a chance to comment.
Yeah, I like the forthrightness you got there, Ronnie, and I think you did capture Candace's personality and directness and hard chargingness. So yeah, a compelling letter.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And LJ.
Cheer on the Edmonds Community College.
Everybody else, mute your line. LJ? I think I got LJ on mute again.
Oh, I think did I get it?
Are you here, LJ? Did you have questions or comments?
Just really learning a lot from everyone's examples. These are really terrific and very just really good work. Thank you for sharing.
Well, you're welcome. I was wishing I could do this all along, but this class has worked a little bit harder. So in the end, I felt like I had something that I definitely wanted all of you to see. And LJ is right. It does help to see other people's work. How about you, Tiffany? Comments or questions?
I like the bold beginning with the congratulations. I thought that was really unique and definitely grabbed your attention. And I also feel like you really captured Candace's personality. And I appreciate being able to see an example like that because that makes me nervous to be, I don't know, that casual. I think I err on the professional side. Maybe it's 10 years in banking. I don't know. But I really enjoyed seeing these samples, and it's great work. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. And Brenda?
I can support everything everybody said. I really love the letter because it does capture her voice. But I do want to compliment you on your headline, your header. That looks really nice.
Oh,
my
letterhead.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this is great. Ronnie mentioned it, and I also just want to call your attention to it again, that Ronnie really did a great job weaving in the reality that Candace did not live in Abilene and why she was applying for a job there. I think that's a really, really effective strategy that I encourage everybody to use whenever possible to try to make that connection so that the employer isn't going to immediately wonder what's going on. And in some ways, Brenda tried to do the same thing with addressing the elephant in the room. So it's a good strategy. Keep that in mind when you're working with your clients is can you address the elephant in the room? Should you address the elephant in the room, and how will you do that? Mm-hmm. So thank you to all of you for being brave enough to share your samples. And I agree, it really, really helps to see how everybody can take that same candidate and handle them very differently. So then, with no further ado, I think what I'll do is I'll mute the line just for a few minutes here, and then I'll unmute and give people an opportunity. But I just wanted to bring up my rendition of Candace's resume, which is totally different than anything else that came in. This does not mean that this is the format I was looking for. So I want to make that clear up front. Also, if you want, I'll send it out to everybody afterwards. And if you find some errors or room for improvement, I'm more than happy to get that feedback because I know that I miss things too. So with no further ado, let me just open this up and I can explain to you what I did with her resume and why I did that. So let me just mute this for a second. Okay, So if you notice here, the overall thing with my strategy in working with Candace is I decided that the place I really wanted to pick up her career was at that point that she got her bachelor's degree and while she was working on that bachelor's degree. So rather than looking at that earlier work experience that took place at that, more challenging period of time in her life and before she actually got her degree, I just summarized that as earlier experience. And I think there was only one other person in class who did that. The rest of you all broke out the whole career chronology. And, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I just wanted to explain to you that the reason I brought her education up front and didn't include her earlier experiences, that in some regards I was trying to position her as a fairly new graduate and business professional. You'll notice here then that I did work in, as many of you did, some of the language from the DISC profile, this service-minded, bottom-line oriented, but I worked it into the letterhead. Identified her career target and used that as the headline. And then the main heading of summary of qualifications is saying these are the things that qualify her for that career that she is targeting. And then what I was really fishing for throughout the period of time that we were working on her summary was to try to remind you all, go back to those career facts that we identified way back in the very first session and weave those into the summary. So that's where I tried to go, was to pull out what are some of the facts that we know about Candace that would qualify her for these career targets. She's a recent business graduate. She has this cross-industry experience. She has a history of working across different business functions, and I identify them. Talk a little bit about her personality strengths and her traits. Identify, very clearly what her computer skills are. And then, weave in a little bit of her language, her thriving in a working man's environment, and also pulling out this quote, which is kind of her philosophy for how she approaches the workplace. Then with a focus primarily on Western equipment, we have a summary of what the company does. I chose to just identify her as a parts and merchandising administrator. It wasn't actually the job titles that were assigned to her, but one of the points I made when we were talking about the experience section is that we can sometimes modify the job title to really say what the client did as opposed to the title that was slapped on them. And then as many of you did, I called out, the promotion that she had, summarized her experiences, and then I used this strategy of rather than calling out each activity that she performed, grouping them under this leadership, experience in leadership in the following areas. And then with the bullets, I did the strategy of using a main accomplishment and then a sub-bullet that's related to that. So that was the strategy, and you'll see that if you go through this, that I tried to carry it throughout, is here's an accomplishment, this is the sub-accomplishment related to that. And then all of those being in past tense, the main accomplishment, starting out with some bolded keywords, and then also trying to minimize the different symbols. So we have the bar graph symbol with 2 spaces before and after, and then we have the check mark symbol. So those were the 2 symbols or bullet formats that I elected to use throughout. So let me unmute the line, and I'll see what questions and comments you all have for me. Okay. Christina, then going down the alphabetical list, you have the floor.
Sure. I really like that checkbox bullet. Is that part of the wingdings or something that's accessible through Microsoft Word?
Let me see where that is. I think it's just a typical symbol. I don't even think it's a wingding. I think it's just a symbol.
Okay.
I can't find it now. Where are they? Oh, there they are. Okay, define new bullet. I believe it is just simply it is a wingding. Yes, it is a wingding.
Oh, okay.
And it would be acceptable. It would be ATS compatible.
Sure. And
anything else?
I had a question about moving her education to the front. I know that, it is impressive that she works full time while also going to school. But I guess, would there be any concern that if someone sees her education right up front, that they might think that she has less experience than she does because she had 9 years sales, marketing, and parts experience?
I suppose there could be that. My thinking around that is that I've already identified her as being a recent graduate, as being one of the things that qualifies her, and then that she does have the experience. I felt when I was working with her that was one of her proudest points, and that that really would be the thing that would propel her career to the next level. So that's why I chose to bring it up front and then to build the experience around that.
Okay, thanks.
Strategy is a funny thing. We can all do it differently. Doug, how about you?
Yeah, a question, I guess, about formatting all of our resumes or how we wrote them for Candace. Have you considered giving students the job notice early in the process so they write the resume to that job, not just the cover letter? Because this is not written to the job notice of the parts manager.
Well, it's written. You want to write the resume. First of all, you want to make sure that you're clear with your client. What occupational clusters are they targeting? What industries are they targeting? You want to write a resume that's broad enough that regardless of the actual job announcement, it would align with that job announcement. And if I were actually coaching Candace on, okay, you're applying for this job with Bowman, well, rather than have this generic target, you need to go in and change that to say career target, parts manager for Bowman Group.
Mm-hmm.
But if I gave you the job announcement at the onset, it's going to create a more narrow focus for the resume and make it more challenging for the client to apply for other positions.
Yeah, I guess I've just been constantly lectured, including NRWA webinars and such. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all resume. It's got it specific to the job that a person is applying for.
Yeah. Well, always start when you're developing your resumes by making them encompass an occupational cluster and an industry. And then certainly when you're coaching your clients using the resume, really needs to see importance. And the thing that I always say to clients is the easiest thing for you to customize is the heading and the summary section. But if submitting for certification, it would be really, really difficult for you to be able to just create a resume for a job announcement and be able to illustrate to the graders that you understand the overall strategy. So that's why we don't give you the job announcement up front. Another thing I wanted to point out, too, and this is tricky, and I had to play with this a lot, but notice the margin marker on the left and right. When you click on a margin marker, want to make sure that any of your text boxes and outlining fall within the margin. And notice how when I click the dotted line, it goes straight down. And then text box around or keywords that could be nudged in a little. And then if I went over here and did it on the left, same thing. That's a little bit tricky, and you have to play with that a little bit more. However, do notice that the graphic line under her letterhead is ending on the margins. So if you're using that strategy, make sure that your text boxes and your outlining and your shading does not fall outside of the margin. It's not going to fail you, but it's just one more thing that we look at. Let me go down to Ronnie then and see what you have to ask or share about this.
This is a beautiful resume. I love it. And about the jump box, so often because I deal with the Boeing clients, that they have these types of letters that come from their coworkers and such. Is that, like you did with Candace's, is it okay to put those types of, or is that the place to put something quoted from their supervisor or such in a jump box like that? Is that the best location for it?
You could put it in that. That's that Johnson box. You could put it there.
The Johnson box.
You could include it as maybe underneath the summary. You might want to center it. I wouldn't include it as a bullet under the summary. You can weave them in a lot of different places. I see them weaved in sometimes within the job section, the professional experience, where they'll show up next to each individual job that the quote is speaking to. So there's a lot of different strategies. But, thanks for reminding me. This is what we call the Johnson box.
And then the other thing, in some of your bars here that separate some of maybe it's just my screen, but some are grayed and some are dark. Is that the way it's supposed to be?
I have no idea what was going on there, and I am so glad that you pointed that out. It was driving me absolutely insane. Every time I would add and make sure that my spaces were 2 before and 2 after, it would change the shading of that bar, and I would change it back. So it definitely would be something that I'd have to continue to massage if I wanted to have this be perfect. But you're right, Ronnie. Some of them are kind of a shade of gray. I don't know why. If I highlight them and I look up here, they are definitely selected as being black. So I don't know what they're doing. Little nuances. It could be that I created this in Microsoft Word 03, and I converted it. And that may be the only thing that's causing the problem is there's a code in there that didn't convert. Good point, though. LJ.
I just wondered, did she get the job?
Last I knew she did. I looked at her LinkedIn profile, and she had made the move.
Wow, that's awesome. So it worked.
Thank you. Yeah, it did work. I can't even remember the cover letter. I was trying to find it, but I don't remember where it was. Anything else, LJ?
No, I'm just it's all. I'm just taking it all in. Just really good work. It's neat to see how it all comes together and can come together in so many different ways.
Yes, it can. Tiffany.
I really like the way that it looks. I like the formatting, but I'm stuck on Doug's comment about how, not having the job description when everything that we're reading and hearing, even from the NCRW, is, about customizing to specific jobs. So I'm not sure testing us in a different way makes sense, but anyway, that's what I've...
In reality, though, do you or anyone else on the call write multiple resumes for your clients?
Not usually.
I have. I do.
I mean, we're talking a resume every time. Do they keep coming back and going, here's another job, will you write me another resume?
I get them like that.
Or I coach them on how to adjust the resume themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy that, if you're hearing that it has to be customized to the job, you may be missing the point that Brenda just made, is that it's part of coaching, too. I don't think any expectation from anybody in the industry that every time you get a client, that you tell that client, come back every time you have a job announcement, or send me 5 jobs that you want to apply for, and I'll write you 5 different resumes. It just would not be a good use of time.
Well, for me personally, I write the resume and then I coach them on how to fairly in the headline, or the job title and the keywords, So I mean the audience doesn't change the element. But when you're testing us on writing a resume, it just seems like it makes more sense for it to be, to have a job description to help you with that process.
Well, I'm somewhat disappointed to hear that, because the main, and you're going to see this when I go through the testing, the main thing that has always been an issue with so many resume writers is it's all about the strategy. It's not let the job announcement drive the process. It's let the overall strategy drive the process. Who is your client? What message are they trying to communicate? Who's the audience they're trying to reach? What value do they have to offer that audience? How will you strategically present that in such a way that your candidate stands above all the competition? And then how will you coach your client on how to customize it for a job? And that's what we're testing, is we're not testing your ability to develop a document around a specific job announcement. We're testing your ability to understand the overall strategy and concept of marketing and writing an effective resume. Brenda, did you want to add anything before I shut this down and go through our presentation?
No, I like the use of color. That's very eye-catching. I was wondering why your second bullet wasn't your first bullet, so that you would address her 9 years of experience early on. And I understand you wanted to play to her pride in just getting her degree.
Okay. Yeah, and looking at this again and on the course, I think I could have quantified some more of the things that are in the summary. That would be, more metrics in there, I think would have helped.
Okay.
That's what I would have put down, is let's see some more metrics there.
Okay, and one more thing. You are using the word career target. Is that really necessary if you have the headlines there?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
If I was going to use it as without career target, I probably would change these to job titles. Inside sales rep, account manager, field and service representative. Okay? Mm-hmm. But again, those are just like little nuances that aren't going to be right or wrong. Mm-hmm. Let's shut this down. I'm going to mute the line. I'm going to run through the overall on the I know that Doug, at least, I know has gone through the process. I don't know how far the rest of you have gone, how much you actually know. So let me just make sure that everybody's kind of up to date on this. And I have to tell you that you have a real distinct advantage, because other than you folks and the people that have completed the Writing Excellence course prior to you, the general public does not know this information that I'm sharing with you, the majority of this information. So let me just kind of run through this with you, and then we'll see what kind of questions we have. So obviously we've already done the show and tell. I'm going to go through all the various steps, the sample reviews, CEUs, what the exam looks like, and the grading criteria. And the grading criteria really is the part that is kind of a behind-the-scenes look that the majority of people don't get. So if somebody wants to just verify that my slides are still up on the screen, that would be great. But so the process goes like this. You need to first be able to, well, you don't need. Let me back up on that. A first logical step would be to submit a writing sample. It is not required that you submit a writing sample, but it's encouraged, because by submitting a writing sample, then you're getting some feedback on how prepared you are to move on to the next level. If you move on to the test without getting that feedback, then, you're running a little bit more of a risk. So the writing sample that you submit is actually a fictionalized resume and a cover letter. And this can be a resume and a cover letter that you wrote for a client. And what you're going to do is just go in there and change the client name, contact information, company information, so that we don't really know who the client is and you're not revealing any personal information. You want to make sure that the resume and the cover letter that you're submitting are for the same client. If you submit one for one client and the other for another client, it's harder for us to give you feedback on how well the two align. You'll also submit with that a brief narrative that explains your strategy. What were the client's objectives? How did you approach the resume and the cover letter? Now, the normal fee for submitting a sample is $75. That $75 fee was rolled into what you paid for this class. So for you to have your first sample reviewed, there will be no extra charge on that. And you can have as many samples reviewed as you want. You don't need to be a member. You don't even need to go for certification. So if you want to get thorough feedback from one of the graders about your work, you're welcome to pay the $75 submission fee beyond what's covered in this class and get some feedback on it. Once you submit your samples, they will be sent to a grader. And we don't know who the sample came from when we're grading it. And we're not actually going line by line and pointing out errors. But what we do is we send you back narrative of, here's the strengths that we saw in the sample. Here are the things that we think that would be good for you to continue to work on. And we'll cite specific errors by highlighting them. We'll give you some detailed notes. But you'll get that information back from the grader along with a recommendation that you're either ready to move on to the exam or we feel that you're not ready. So it's not actually going to be scored. Once you get that information back, you are given the option then of getting on the phone call with the grader. The grader will be notified, this is the person whose sample you graded. They would like to talk to you on the phone. And then the grader will set up a phone call with you and provide you with any other direction, feedback about the sample that you submitted. We try to keep those calls to 15 to 20 minutes. But again, I encourage you all to take advantage of it. I'm not the only grader. There are actually 6 of us. So it's also really helpful to hear what another grader may point out that I didn't, in terms of strategy and those things that are a little bit more of subjective comments. So once you feel confident that you're ready to move forward to the exam, or you get a recommendation from the grader that we feel you're ready for the exam, then you move on to the next step. Now, before you can actually begin the exam process, you have to be able to verify that you've earned 10 continuing education credits within the last 3 years. And as you can see here on the screen, I've listed what you earn credits for. And this information is also on the NRWA website. But those that complete the course and complete their homework assignments will get a maximum of 25 continuing education credits. So what that means is that you have already fulfilled the requirement of continuing education credits, up to a maximum of 25. So once you've verified that you have earned the credits, you go online and you actually register to take the exam. Now, the exam itself costs $250. That fee was rolled into what you paid to take this course, with the understanding that you will complete the entire process within the next 3 months. So that means you have between now and what's 3 months from now, May, June, July, second week of July to actually go through the entire process. If for some reason you can't go through the entire process before the second week of July, then you may have to pay the exam fee or a portion of the exam fee. Part 1 of the exam is very, very similar to the proofreading homework assignment that I sent out to everybody, which became a very frustrating experience for me because everybody started editing the homework assignment. So the big difference is going to be that the resume that you're sent as Part 1 will specifically say in the instructions, find an example of an error in, and you find one example of that error and you highlight it. And then it goes down the list. What was different with the homework assignment is I just told you find these errors, and then the majority of you decided, well, I'm not only going to find those errors, but I'm going to change some of the wording, and I'm going to point out grammatical errors, and I'm going to do all this other stuff, and I'm going to make it look better. If you try to do that for the exam, you're not going to pass Part 1. And I have to tell you that the sample that we're giving you definitely could be written much better. But what we're going to ask you to do is find an example of a parallel structure error. Find an example of a misuse of a comma. So you'll just go through that. Now, this is timed, so it's going to be emailed to you, and you're going to have to complete that grading within an hour and then email it back to the certification chair. All of that will be explained in the instruction sheet, so it's not that you have to remember that right now. If you pass Part 1, then you're able to move on to Part 2. If you fail Part 1, you have to wait 30 days, and then you pay $50, and you can take Part 1 over again. It'll be a different sample with different errors, but you'll be able to move on. So my hope is that you'll all pass Part 1, and that'll be a non-issue. So once you pass Part 1, you're going to move on to Part 2. And Part 2 is going to act very much like what we did here with class. The only difference is what you were all, not all of you, but what some of you were mentioning here when we were critiquing my resume. You will be given a candidate profile that looks very, very much like Candace's profile, but you will be given the sample job announcement up front. Your task is to create a resume and a cover letter with that information. You have 3 days to complete that. When you sign up to take the exam, you can let the certification admin know when you would like her to send you the profile so that you can plan around those 3 days. it's not like if you register today, I'm going to send it to you tomorrow morning, and you have to have it back to me by Monday. So you can say, I'm registering, and ideally I would like to begin that process Monday and have it back to you by Wednesday. Now, you can't push it off into the distant future, but I just wanted you to know that, you don't have to start the process the minute that we send it to you. You have a little bit of a wiggle room there. With the exam, it's going to be reviewed by 2 graders. So each grader will get a copy of the cover letter and the resume, and will get a grading sheet. We will not know who the candidate is that we're grading for. And we will complete the grading sheet and then tally up the score and send back only the grading sheet with our recommendation of either pass or fail based on what the overall score was. You as a candidate then will get a feedback from the NCRW chair will send you an email and let you know whether or not you passed, and will include with that email the test grading sheet. So the difference between the sample review is on the sample review, you're going to get your sample back with things highlighted and marked up. With the test, you will not get your test back. You will only get the test grading sheet back. So the grading sheet, which we just recently totally overhauled, and this will probably be good news for those of you that have gone through the process before, we have changed the grading criteria and we've changed the point system. So the total number of points that you want to earn is 100, just like when you were in school. And these are the categories that you're being graded on and how many points you can earn for each category. So the maximum number of points for each is outlined here. And in order, the overall resume strategy is what qualifies for the highest number of points. 23 points will be awarded based on these criteria. And these criteria line up with the curriculum of the Writing Excellence Program, and they also line up with the new study guide. Both of those I released today to the admin. Both of those are available now for distribution, the new study guide and the new grading sheet. We're using those going forward. So you may want to also download a copy of the new study guide. I don't know how quickly it will be on the website, but if you go to the website, the new study guide on page 1 will say last updated April 2017. If you have a study guide that does not say that, you have an older one. So overall strategy is worth 23 points. Grammar and punctuation is worth 21. And we kind of break it down. So, we might give like 2 points for writing clarity and effectiveness and, and 3 points for concise writing. So I didn't break it down to that level of detail, but I did indicate here what are the things you're being graded on. And that's the same for strategy. The cover letter, that is worth 21 points. So these are the most critical pieces. And going back to that point about writing the resume to the job announcement, the strategy and grammar and punctuation are going to apply whether or not the resume is written to a specific job announcement. So those are the heaviest weighted things. The cover letter, yes, absolutely. It needs to address the job announcement, but it also will be graded on overall writing style and the tone of the letter, the overall grammar and punctuation, the overall format, and whether or not it adheres to those AIDA principles. So those are your heaviest weighted areas. The next areas that we weight, and as you see, it'll go down. We then look at the professional experience section, and that's worth 12 points. And what we're looking at there, just as we broke it down in our class, is we're going to look at the company names, the job titles, the job descriptions, and the overall accomplishments. All of that weighs 12 points. Then we're going to look at the overall resume formatting and design. And we're going to look at, how proficient were you with Microsoft Word. We're going to look at your letterhead, the headers and footers, the overall formatting consistency, the length of the letter, of the resume, the page breaks. So all of the things that we covered in class under that session on formatting and design, those are going to be worth 12 points. Then we took out a lot of the points where we were requiring ASCII documents and e-notes, and basically what we're saying is if your resume is compatible with the ATS system, we'll give you 3 points. If it's not compatible, but you gave us a second version, a second format that is compatible, we'll give you 3 points. So as you can see, even though we talked a lot about ATS compatibility, you could lose 3 points by doing that completely wrong and still get a score 97. So what I'm saying here basically is, yes, be aware, but don't let that be the thing that drives your overall strategy, content, grammar, because those are the things that are going to be the most important. We also built into the new grading process some extra points for what we're calling wildcard points, and that is 8 points, and we kind of distribute that throughout the grading. So with the strategy section, you might be able to earn 2 extra points if you have a unique or a highly effective strategy. With the formatting, you could earn an extra 2 points for, using things like images or charts or smart art, being creative with the way that you're illustrating metrics under the accomplishments. So we're just sprinkling in some ways to reward candidates that go a little above and beyond. And all together, that would account for 8 points. And then we have a category at the very end, which is 7 points, and this is kind of a catch-all for the grader that they can award extra points if indeed everything was meticulously proofread. If everything was submitted according to instructions, and if the overall strategy and writing quality are above average. So that's where you can earn extra points up to 15. Now the overall grading then, if you grade at an 80 or above, this is a pass. And you'll see that there is a range, so that you have an ability to strive to continue to improve your skills. And I hope you will, because I know that I have in the 30 years that I've been in business, I am constantly striving for that A. Scores of 70 and below are no pass. And our general philosophy or criteria is that we only award the NCRW to work that's above average. So that doesn't mean that you're not good, but we really feel that the thing that distinguishes our credential over maybe some of the other industry credentials is we're not giving the certification to, good enough. We're giving it to above average. And when you could put that on your business card, it says something really special about you as a writer. So in closing then, I just wanted to give you, these are some of the main reasons that people don't pass. And probably one of the biggest ones is they don't follow the directions. You would be amazed what people submit that make us scratch our head and go, did they not read the directions? Even sometimes at the point of a sample review, I remember a couple of times getting something that didn't even remotely resemble a resume, but the candidate decided this is what I'm going to submit. So there's no reason to not follow the directions. They're very clearly specified, and if you still need a little extra help, email the admin and ask her if she can just explain things you're not understanding. The second primary reason people don't pass is they aren't fully understanding the candidate's profile, the sample profile that we give you that you need to write to. And this is why I kept hounding you and beating you all over the head throughout the training is go back and read that profile again. Make sure you're interpreting the information correctly. Make sure you're pulling out the relevant information and you're disregarding the irrelevant information. The third major reason that people don't pass is their overall strategy is not effective. And again, speaking to that point of if you try to write to the job announcement, then we're going to question how well you understand the overall strategy. Fourth primary reason people don't pass is they just don't write well. And that is a very, very frustrating thing for us as graders to look at a resume and a cover letter that follows the candidate profile, has an effective strategy, follows the instructions, but the writing quality was poor and there was a lot of grammatical and punctuation errors. So I can't stress enough how important it is to continue to refine your writing skills. The next primary reason that people fail, they may be strong in all these other areas, but their accomplishment bullets are weak. They're not quantified, they're not front-loaded. All things that we've covered here in class. Multiple proofreading oversights, multiple grammatical issues, and that kind of goes back to the overall writing quality. Document formatting style, errors, inconsistencies, so we do look at that. But going back to the previous slide, again, if you're strong in these areas, we aren't going to fail you just based on these. However, and I think I gave some of you this feedback personally, if you are weak in these areas, we're going to start paying a whole lot closer attention to the other. And one of the biggies is this document formatting. If we open up the resume and our first reaction is, ooh, this is too dense, or look at all that white space, or the letter is really, really long, or the resume is long and narrow, then we start looking more critically at these other areas. So formatting is important. It doesn't mean that you're going to fail based on formatting, but it's that first impression. If we like what we see off the bat, then we're going to be more receptive to some of the other issues that may come up with the resume and the cover letter. Cover letter is not properly formatted. It always surprises us as graders when we're pointing to the Gregg Reference Manual and saying, follow this full block style format, that people still choose to create their own format of the cover letter. And then cover letters to focus on the candidate's wants and needs more than on the employer. And I stressed that over and over again, too, as we were going through the cover letter exercises. So just in closing here, and then I'll open up the line and see if there's any specific questions regarding all of that, because I ran through it fast. But now, like I say, you have it all in writing, and there are very few people that have that information in writing. So protect it. Use it to your advantage. So again, there's a 3-month time limit for completing the certification process. If you don't complete, then you would have to pay the additional fees. We'll do a Q&A, but just to let you know, from this point forward, you'll be getting an evaluation. It's going to be through SurveyMonkey, and it'll just be a course evaluation that you can anonymously go in there and rate the course on various criteria. And then if you so choose to write in specific comments, constructive feedback for the course or things that you liked about the course, please do so. We love to see those. We often borrow the good comments and use them in our marketing. And the comments of constructive feedback, they continually come to me and help me refine the course, because I know that it can always be better, and I have refined it each and every time that I've taught it. So anything you can share there. We will be preparing certificates of completion, and they look really, really spiffy. They're signed by the president and the NCRWA chair, and they're spiffy enough that you may even want to frame it and hang it up for those who come into your office to see and admire. And then the final thing is just my own personal offer, that if you're interested in any ongoing mentoring, I would be happy to submit a proposal to you and quote a fee. And when I do mentoring, I do it on a customized basis, so I can't just come right out and say, yeah, my mentoring fee is X amount per hour. But I've worked with you all, and I could put together a proposal saying these are some of the areas that we could work on. I'm estimating this amount of time, and you can pay me on an hourly basis of X, and we could work out a deal. Or you can always seek out a mentor on your own by contacting another NCRW through the NRWA website, or, going to someone that you know that is a really effective writer and asking them if they might assist you. But, yeah, I encourage you to continue to work with a mentor, work with a coach, get feedback, continually refine your work. As you saw with tonight of sharing, when you see what other people do, it really helps you and improve. Now, I have had over and over people asking me, well, where can I see some good examples of NCRW resumes? The best thing that I can say is go to the websites of those people that are NCRWs and look at the samples they have posted on their websites. That would be a good way to see what are some of the standards that you're striving for. Also keeping in mind that some of them might be like me, I haven't updated my samples in a while. So I know that I've improved my writing even from the time that I put those samples up there. So let me unmute the line, see what remaining questions and comments we have. It's almost 7:30, so if you need to get off the line, you can always email me your questions and comments directly if you don't have time to stay on the call. Starting then at the bottom of the alphabet, Brenda, any questions or comments?
No questions. Are you going to go over the proofreading homework?
No, because it turned out to be such a disastrous experience. And like I said, the reason I gave it is I wanted you all to experience what would happen in part one of the exam. Okay. And when I realized everybody was starting to edit the resume, it kind of became a moot point. It was really, really difficult for me to grade them with the track changes because there were so many changes. So thank you to those of you that did submit it. I can take a look at those again because unfortunately I only got a few of them back.
Okay.
Okay. Tiffany, how about you?
I think I'm good. Nervous, but
well, at least now you know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, LJ?
I'm all good. Thank you very much for everything, and thank you all for everything and their participation. It's been great.
It's going to make me cry. Thanks, LJ. How about you, Ronnie?
I'm supporting LJ 100%, and LJ, I thank you for linking up with me, and I'll be catching up with you. And it was a wonderful experience. Noreen, you're wonderful. You're great. Thank you. You beat me
thank
up,
you.
and I love
that.
that. Keep it up.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Best of luck to everybody.
Doug, any questions or comments on the grading process? And
no questions. I might follow up with you later with a question or two. But I echo the comments of my classmates. This has been great. You've been a wonderful instructor, and I feel I've learned a lot.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Doug. And Christina.
I've also really enjoyed it and learned a lot. My only question is, do we need to buy a Greg reference manual, or did the course really cover all the information that we need to successfully get through the exam without needing that?
And if how can I say this? I use my Greg reference manual on a daily basis. There is far too much to try to know it. And I'm even when I was grading homework assignments today, I was pulling out my Greg. I think my wholehearted answer to that, Christine, is you need to have a Greg reference manual. It is the only way that you're going to be able to continue to address all of these grammatical nuances and errors. Yeah, I highly agree.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I use it as the dictionary. And sometimes even people like Greg will challenge, or Doug will challenge me and go, I don't know why you put that there. And then I have to go look it up. And then I go, yes, you're right, Doug, I should put a comma there. So thank you, everybody. You have enriched my evenings, and I hope to, in the future, see more of you with NCRW in your credentials. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Maureen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.